OPUS is a psychological horror film where we follow Ariel, played by Io Edeberry. She's the journalist among 6 guests who are invited to a private compound of pop star Alfred Moretti, played by John Malkovich. He invites them to celebrate and listen to his new album after spending 30 years away from the public eye, but Ariel soon realizes that Moretti is leading a cult, and their practices lead her to question her safety on the compound. So this movie is blatantly an allegory for the toxicity of celebrity culture. It's about the detachment that some of the upper-class Hollywood elites have from ordinary society, and the ways they're revered as gods by the public while they relish in the prestige of their clique. It digs into how celebrities alienate ordinary people, prioritizing all things superficial, and then fall back on the excuse that anyone can sit where they sit with enough effort, despite the fact that it is one of the most competitive industries in the world that has every reason to remain exclusive and is inherently dehumanizing to people who pursue their artistic passion. So this movie illustrates how toxic this community is allegorically through this cult that practices in a religion called the Meditations of Level. Their beliefs are rooted in elitism, placing Moretti, this larger-than-life pop star, at the throne. His acolytes worship him like he's a god, but his acolytes are also reflective of elitist ideals. They're all extremely gifted artists, representing the justification that the cult of celebrities relish in their mutual artistry rather than acknowledging the classist reality that they live in. It's obviously a narrow half-truth about celebrity culture because classism is the actual root of the problem, and the same cult metaphor can be projected onto really any snooty communities and not just celebrities. Nevertheless, it's a much more recognizable community to pigeonhole as a cult because celebrities have many aspects of their being paraded through mass media, which is very conceptually strange. Like, we have entire web series dedicated to telling us about the random little things that celebrities can't live without, as if that brings us any value whatsoever, and as if we should be shocked that they like the same normal things that we also like, as if they're not also people. So the movie isn't just about the elitism of celebrity culture, it's also about society and how ordinary people enable this culture through fandom and obsession. There's a bit of a recurring theme of envy. In addition to the celeb worshipping in this movie, Ariel is someone who struggles with her journalism career. She wants to get better projects at work and write something that allows her to feel seen. Things get a little bit counterproductive in the way that the movie gets to a point where it, in itself, reduces people for pursuing their artistic passion by illustrating how they contribute to the big cult problems. Which, if we were to take that message at face value and collectively stop doing that, then it would keep those communities more exclusive than ever. And with how radical of a stance this movie takes on villainizing the exclusivity of Hollywood, it really just begs the question, what message are you trying to send with this movie? Setting aside the allegory for a moment, it is just a horror movie on the surface, and that's actually where it starts to get kind of lost. It's mostly psychological horror, so don't expect any jump scares. There's a little bit of blood, but it's definitely not the movie to watch if you're trying to watch a gore fest. The psychological terror of this movie should be the sauce, but it's actually pretty mild just because the tone of this movie isn't really as eerie as it seemingly wants to be. It's a little bit creepy just because of how strange some of the cult members are, but you never really get an actual sense of danger. Ariel is definitely very uncomfortable, but there's never a moment where you're really thinking, oh no, what's gonna happen to her? And you're never really concerned for any of the supporting characters because they're not presented to us in a way that commands empathy. They're all very naive to the danger of the situation that they're in, and they're not very fleshed out beyond the superficialities of their respective careers. Like, you kind of almost want them to bite the dust, obviously acknowledging that these are just fictional characters, and I would never wish that upon an actual innocent human being. The naivety of the supporting characters totally makes sense considering the allegory and how society worships celebrities and enables their godlike status. But in the context of a horror film that's just trying to draw parallels with this terrible situation, all these characters just look really dumb. It would be one thing if they leaned into that as a bit of a joke, as if their stupidity was for comedic value, but it's just one of those situations where the characters just really annoy you. By the time the movie reaches the climax, it doesn't really feel like much has happened other than the movie just constantly reiterating its grand narrative. There wasn't much prior that felt pivotal or momentous. You can kind of see a lot of things coming just because the movie is more concerned with bashing you in the head with its overstated message about celebrities. The depictions of absurd cult behavior aren't very interesting if you've seen any other movies about cults or abuse of power. And the falling actions were very rushed. The chaos was so brief and unimaginative. It just felt like the product of lazy writing that's just trying to rush to the end, not at all concerned about how lackluster the means are. And finally, we have John Malkovich, who I love as an actor. I like him some of the time here, but that's mainly because I just like him as an actor and not really because I like him in this role. Because honestly, he feels like a total miscast. I think he's a good, convincing cult leader, but not really a convincing pop star. I get that his character is older and retired now, but even his younger depictions don't really feel right to me. As much as I like his gravitas and his pomp, he doesn't really feel like the guy. There's obviously something to be said about how the times are different now than they were during that time period during the heights of his character's career, but I just can't shake those Steve Jobs vibes. The scenes where he is acting bizarre and very extra and crawling on the ground, these feel like they would make more sense with a more naturally flamboyant actor playing him. I do like Ayo Edebiri in this role though, being someone who looks very young and innocent, someone with a naturally soft presence. She fits the role of someone who struggles to feel seen in her career. That being part of the narrative, though, is where I start to have gripes with what this movie is trying to say in the end. On top of the fact that it feels mildly hypocritical coming from a movie with 2 Emmy-winning actors at center stage, one of its final statements feels pretty distorted. I totally agree with some of the points being made about Hollywood being very exclusive and detached, but the movie makes too broad of jabs at those who pursue their creative passion as a career. At the risk of sounding like the type of apologist that this movie aims to mock, I gotta say that I've never been in love with the implication that artistry is synonymous with self-aggrandizement. It's something we've all heard before. People sometimes like to suggest that there's no such thing as putting your creative work out there in a way that isn't fueled by vanity or fame-seeking. But not everyone wants to grow their artistic following for such superficial reasons. Some people just want their work to be profitable so that it is more sustainable for them to keep creating. Simply because we enjoy creating and performing, and being able to do that all the time is a privilege that I'm sure most artists would agree would be great to have. But the profitability of that is only at the mercy of those who consume, so that leads to the desire to promote and broaden your artistic following. This is true whether you're an actor growing their reputation in Hollywood, or a journalist trying to stepstone into a better writing career, or a freelance artist who's just trying to grow on Instagram. And that's obviously where we sometimes find vanity and where the line gets blurry, because some people do just love the idea of being worshipped by millions of people. All I'm trying to say is that not everybody wants to be a rock star just to have their name chanted. Some people just find enjoyment in writing and performing rock music because it's fun. Anyway, with this whole rant, these are just my afterthoughts. I am capable of setting aside my biases just to indulge a movie and listen to whatever it's trying to say. Setting aside these afterthoughts, I thought the movie was only okay. The symbolism works, but in pursuit of fully fleshing that out, the other factors that make a movie entertaining seem to have been forgotten about. I'll put this one at the bottom end of it's fine. Just the whole process of solving this movie was the most enjoyable part, but everything on the surface was just a bit underwhelming. If you like to bash celebrities, then you might actually enjoy this movie. But if you're looking for something that is like Midsummer tier, or if you want something suspenseful or exciting, then you might find this to be a little bit disappointing. Thanks for watching this review. If it brought you any value at all, please give it a like. It really does help the channel grow. I'll see you next week with my review of Death of a Unicorn.